Get into the pro talk, all right? We have today a pro reveal that really launched PlayStation into the next console generation. We have three tiers that they wanted to focus on. AI driven upscaling would be the most impressive thing that I saw in the presentation. No longer will you have to choose between fidelity and performance. They are now combining the two modes. And for me, that is fantastic because I hated having to make that choice, having to make that sacrifice. Dorgon, why don't you launch into more things that we can expect from the PlayStation, and then we can perhaps talk about some cost issues.
Oh, that's going to be the big one, isn't it? So yeah, let's sort of approach this as Sony approached it, which is just talk about the console itself initially. This is an upgrade, a mid-generation upgrade to the PlayStation 5. So similar to what we saw with PlayStation 4 to PlayStation 4 Pro, it's going to be offering you a little bit more. Everything is going to be the same. There's not going to be a massive difference between the PlayStation 5 and the PlayStation 5 Pro, for example. So it's not going to be a case of, oh, if you don't have the Pro, you're going to miss out on certain games. It's not like the new 3DS XL or anything like that Nintendo did. It's simply going to be the Pro will have some enhanced features for PlayStation 5 games. As you've already stated, one of the big aims was to be able to allow developers to offer the graphical fidelity that they want while offering gamers the frame rates that they want, which they've been at odds in recent times otherwise. So there's now this console that will allow both to happen simultaneously, or at least that's the aim of them anyhow. There is then a much bigger internal SSD. It's still that super unique, super fast SSD with speeds beyond PCIe Gen 4 that has made games like Spider Man instant loaders, has made games like Astrobot instant loaders. So there's that in there as well. It's just bigger now, so you don't need to go out and buy another M.2 drive too quickly unless you've got one in a PS5 that you just want to transfer over into your Pro. It comes with a standard DualSense controller. Doesn't come with a stand. Doesn't come with a disk drive. It's going to be on sale from September the 26th. That's when pre-orders go live, and it will be selling for 699 US dollars, 699 Great British pounds, 799 euros, and 190 something yen. So it's an expensive console, this one. But the main aim for it, they had three pillars they were talking about. One is graphics, one is ray tracing, and one is their PSSR super resolution, which is meant to bring things up to a higher res. So similar sort of checkerboarding type idea as there was on the PlayStation 4 Pro, very similar to the DLSS 3 that's on NVIDIA graphics cards currently, and the AMD FSR that you get on your gaming handhelds and AMD graphics processors. It's just PlayStation's version of it that they're calling PSSR, which, doesn't sound like a Soviet state at all.
I don't think it sounds like who knows the Soviet state? That's such an old reference. I mean, to me, I'm like
Anybody over
PSSR.
the age of 12?
No, no, come on. When was the last time the USSR even existed?
It was a long ass time ago, but it keeps popping up
Yeah.
in popular culture because for some reason you guys are obsessed with, not you guys, your close neighbors down south. They're obsessed with it.
Well, to me, I think it's great to see a console finally introduce something like AI upscaling. I think it was something that we were lacking now in this console generation of new games, modern games coming out. And we were seeing that in the 30 frames per second. Now, the price tag being varied on different areas of the world. I mean, to me, that that is frustrating because it's hard to have a conversation now internationally with people when it costs a certain amount in Canada than it does in the UK because it really the taxes are coming into play here and it's setting us all apart and not on the same playing field. We have the history of the consoles that you sent me. I don't know if you wanted to to go over this, but I thought it was crazy to see that even adjusted for inflation, it doesn't seem like the PS5 Pro is too crazy, too much of a stretch out there. And this is how I felt when I saw it. I'm like, okay, well, that's about $100 difference than what I got my PS5 from. So that's how I saw it. I don't know how
There's
you
multiple
feel about the
ways.
price, but for me, I think it makes sense. I think if you're getting a mid console generation upgrade, $100 Canadian is a fair ask.
And I would agree if that were the same situation worldwide. The problem is, it's not the same situation worldwide. So you've got $100 difference between the standard PS5 and the Pro. That is exactly what there was between the PlayStation 4 and the PlayStation 4 Pro when that launched here in the UK. There was £100 difference. I didn't get the PlayStation 4 Pro immediately. Whittlesniff in chat did. He got it very early on. I waited for a special edition that I wanted, and I ended up with that 500 million translucent blue unit, which is absolutely gorgeous. My biggest problem is they've got this ticket price, but that's not the full price of the console. So it's £699 here in the UK. We will do the currency transversion shortly. But at £699, that gets you the console and a DualSense in a box. Now, as you've seen already, and as I can show off here, I am a physical gamer. I have games in hand. I have the discs, so I can stick them in, and I can use them even when there isn't an internet connection, because that's always the way I've liked to game. I like to protect my consumer rights because I've got like 14 to 28 days to return those if I don't like it, not just 2 hours, or even just downloading the damn thing on PlayStation means you can never get a refund for it. So if I really don't like it, I can return it and get my money back. And it also means that if I do love the game, I've got it many years down the line when all of the servers are turned off and this is no longer the current generation of console sort of thing. So if I want to keep my library and use my library on the PlayStation 5 Pro, which is what they have said is the entire marketing of it. There's no new games that have been announced. They haven't shown off something that is taking super advantage of the PS5 Pro. They showed off mostly this one, Spider-Man 2. They showed this game off and said, "Oh yeah, this game will work so much better on PS5 Pro. It'll run faster, it'll look better, and all that sort of stuff." So to play that on PS5 Pro, if I were to buy that, I'd have to buy the console at £699, but I would then have to buy an additional, not included in the Pro console cost, disc drive at £100. So suddenly, that £699 console is costing me £799. To then put that console in the position that my current PS5 is in, which is in an item of furniture that was bought specifically to house the PlayStation 5, I would also need that vertical stand, which again, on the Pro console, somehow isn't included in the price when it was on the original launch model that I've currently got. That stand is an additional £25. So suddenly, that £699 console is £825. And that Pro console has the basic DualSense. It doesn't even have the Pro controller. So if I want the full Pro experience, I then have to add on a DualSense Edge controller at £210. So suddenly, to get the full Pro PlayStation experience here in the UK, with no games included, bear in mind, it is costing me £1,100. And that is a currency transversion of 1,800 US dollars. It's a little bit ridiculous. It's priced itself out of attainability here in the UK. And everybody's reaction, literally every person who I've seen has said it's unaffordable. We saw a cost of living spike 2 years ago in 2022. If you take it on a graph, it was going across like this, little bits of increase, little bits of decrease in cost of living for inflation. Then 2022, there was a vertical spike up to above where my camera can go, sort of thing. And then it stayed at that point, and then you got the little spikes up here. Our cost of living increased fivefold in 2022. We don't have 700 quid spare. That doesn't even cover my mortgage payments each month. I'm not going to have that spare for a console that isn't the full pro experience that I've then got to spend additional money on accessories which should be included in the pro price to actually game. It's just we had a week of absolute disaster in Concord shutting down last week, which moved into absolute elation at Astrobot and PlayStation's back, that gaming's back, this is what we need, to what the hell, this is the end of PlayStation with that price announcement. I'm flabbergasted by the astronomical costs here in the UK, and it's worse in Europe. It's even more expensive on mainland Europe. It's just, I'm coming to visit you so I can just buy one at 500 quid because that's the currency transversion of your 950 Canadian dollars, 533 pounds. It's ridiculous.
What do you mean there's no defending this? And I said this as a Canadian. We're not hit with the taxes that Oregon is hit with, unfortunately, and that is not the greatest state to be in. But in Canada, it like I said, it's $100 for a mid-generation upgrade. If you go into a store and you trade in your PlayStation 5 and then you go to upgrade, it's a simple solution for a push and play experience that's going to give you 4K 60 with an AI upscaling option. Now, if you want to build a PC to give you that same experience here in Canada, it's going to cost you $500 to $1,000 more than the PlayStation 5 Pro base price. So there's, like I said, it's hard to have this conversation internationally because for me in Canada, it seems to be making a lot of sense. I'm happy to see the mid generation upgrade. And I'm thinking to myself, where is the best place to play Grand Theft Auto 6 year one? It's going to be the PlayStation 5 Pro because it's the only one that's going to be able to take advantage of a lot of things, make it more, it's, I hope it's able to run at 60, fingers crossed, but it's not going to be an utter mess like it may be on other consoles. I think this is going to be the most powerful way and option, and it's going to be marketed as that. And to me, I'm actually worried if I don't get in now. This is called FOMO, by the way. I completely recognize it. Are the pre-orders going to sell out? Is it going to be like a PlayStation Portal experience where they just sell out right away? And
Yes, it
that's
will.
it, because the market is there for this, even though a lot of people may judge it over this much and saying that the price is raised. I mean, a lot of people don't even bat an eye to it. They're like, "Oh, it's sitting right next to my normal PlayStation." Like that's where it's going. So the market is there. The price difference is crazy that it's dependent on different places. And my thing is, I think it's a little bit of a failure on on people not being able to take advantage of the PlayStation 5, because the big selling advantage is to get 4K 60. And I always thought that we would be having 4K 60 on the base PlayStation 5. Hell, we just had Astrobot release, and what is it performing at? 4K
4K
60.
60.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and what did the PlayStation 5 Pro presentation be absent of? Astrobot. Because what is it going to improve in Astrobot? Not very much, right? It's
This is
already
my
at pinnacle performance. So it's really people not taking advantage of the OG PlayStation and them getting kind of a leg up. They're using AI to boost it when really if you put dedication and passion into a game like Astrobot, you can achieve the 4K 60.
You're 100% correct. This is a developer problem, not a consumer problem. We are suddenly being lumped. If we want that experience that, let's not forget, was promised to us on the box of the original PlayStation 5. I've got that box downstairs. It says on the front of it that the PlayStation 5, the base model, can do 4K 120 frames per second. It claims that. It also claims it can do 8K. I imagine it'd do 8K at like 12 frames per second if that ever happened. But these are on the box claims of the base model PlayStation 5. And 4 years later, a mere 4 years later, Mark Cerny's trying to tell me that, oh, but developers want this, developers want that. And that's the issue. Developers want this more powerful console so that they can make grains of sand fall out of bags more interestingly, so that they can have hair move more realistically. The Prince of Persia's head doesn't move in Sands of Time, Warrior Within, or The Two Thrones. That is still one of the best gaming trilogies in history. People return to that on an annual or biannual basis. They return to it so regularly. And nobody gives a damn how it looks because it plays exceptionally. We don't care about how that tree looks 700 meters in the distance. And during this technical presentation, that is what they were picking on to show how much better the PS5 Pro was. When you looked at The Last of Us Part 2 footage, they were picking on this tower, which looked absolutely perfect in the 60 frames per second base PS5 footage. And then, oh, look how much better it looks, how much sharper it looks in the PS5 Pro footage. I don't give a damn. I'm never looking at it. It's just a shape that's there. It's the enemy in front of me that I need the frames per second to counter. This ray tracing obsession with developers as well. Whipplesniff has spoken about this with myself at length. Ray tracing means nothing. You can get rid of ray tracing and not a single gamer will notice. I have never looked at a car in Gran Turismo 7. Bear in mind, I play that in VR, so I can just turn my head and look at that car and thought, oh, it's such a shame I can't see the reflection of my car in that car's paint job. But now that's meant to be a massive selling factor of the PS5 Pro. It can have ray trace reflections of my car coming back at me. I'm racing at 120 mile an hour towards a braking zone in the apex of a corner. Ray tracing doesn't change that. More frames per second will. It'll make my gaming better. This is a developer issue. They can nail 60 frames per second on that base console. It has been proven time and time again that it can be done. Astrobot literally came out in the last week to prove that it can be done and even be done at 4K. You just have to stop chasing graphical fidelity that means jack all to the customer. And it's now a case of that cost, that greed from the developers is being passed on to the consumer. They want to make a console that can do this, that, and the other. Great. But what does your artistic vision cost people at that point? Because if you're not selling those consoles and not selling those games, your artistic vision of aiming for that level of graphical fidelity doesn't matter, because you're going to go under and lose your job if you're not selling games because they don't run well. It's a developer issue. They need to do better with the base console because that can do 4K and 60 frames per second simultaneously if they optimize properly, if they cut things that don't matter.
Yeah. And that's what we're seeing here. And that's why I think a lot of PlayStation games were featured and we saw a lack of Astrobot. But we come to a day and age where I'm not sure that the man hours required to make it work on hardware is then a cost benefit analysis. It's like, hey, if we use AI, then it's going to cost a lot less to make the game. It's going to be able to output more. So they're really playing a balancing act with man hours. And uh-oh, I got in trouble. A yellow flag
No,
on the
you've not.
play.
No, you've not got in trouble. It's just you've said something that triggered a thought that I had yesterday. That AI upscaling. I know you don't have the TV or the monitor to take advantage of these sort of things. I have a Sony 4K OLED. Within that television is an X1 processing chip. That chip already has AI upscaling technology within it. So if it is receiving a signal that is below 4K, it will checkerboard fill in to bring that signal up to 4K. So if I'm putting a 1080p signal through it, like the 60 frames per second mode of Spider-Man 2, what I am seeing on my television screen is a 4K image. It's checkerboarded, it's filled in, it's artificial intelligence making it look better, but I already have that technology from my 6-year-old television. What benefit will this console bring to me? And there's so many other people in the same spot. If you've got a 4K television, especially, I apologize, especially a top-end pinnacle 4K OLED type television, they've all got these smart chips in them that upscale lower resolution images anyway. So why is the console now putting power into doing what your television is already doing? And for someone like you who doesn't have a screen like that, it's only going to be rendering at 1080p anyway through whatever you're doing it with, whether it's remote play or a 1080p TV.
Well, I think it was time for consoles to implement a local, like a DLSS, like what PCs are doing. And Sony is good at entertainment. They're great at Sony Core. They're great at delivering entertaining experiences. And I think delivering PSSR is one, it's marketing, right? It's blast processing. They're trying to hit us with something fancy and flashy. But at the same time, I'm excited to see it implemented locally and made for games instead of made for entertainment. So, hey, I'm one who is not not in the same camp, right? We're in different international places. So, it only being $100 difference, I see it as an add-on bonus, and why wouldn't you pay for it like an accessory? 45% or more GPU usage, more storage locally. I mean, that storage locally that they're increasing the base model from already makes it more valuable here in Canada than the base model. I mean, you're
And
getting an
again,
extra terabyte.
in your situation, it makes perfect sense. And that was the
Yeah.
situation of the PS4 Pro here in the UK. When that launched, it was £100 more than the base PS4. And when I bought the PS4, I was on PS3. I didn't buy PS4 at launch. I waited about 6 months. I got home from work one day, thought I want a PlayStation 4, and I walked down to Argos to buy one, and came back with a PlayStation 4 in my possession. That's not something that can be done when the console is costing 700 quid. When the console is costing more than my mortgage payments. When it's costing more than my mortgage payments, my gas and electricity and water bills combined. That is the level of expense that it is over here. And like I say, it's worse in mainland Europe. I don't quite know what the currency translation is to Japan, but their base PS5 costs the equivalent of £600 already. So I imagine it's 800-900 quid for the Pro. I think the only country in the world that is getting a good deal on PS5 Pro is you guys in Canada, but you can't get one delivered because there's too much space between your houses, as you said last week, and you won't get things delivered.
Yeah. Hey, that's why I'm scared. It's like if you don't pre-order or if you don't get there day one at the store, I mean, they got 50 of them for Canadians, I swear. But hey, you know what I thought was missing from the presentation yesterday, which I think Ninja Guy will agree with in the chat? Where
Games.
was the optimization for PSVR 2? Like, will the PS5 Pro work with PSVR 2 much better? Will it enhance the experiences?
Well, there was nothing in the presentation, and that kind of makes sense from a company that 3 months ago said they were defunding PSVR 2 a little bit because it didn't have the success that they thought it would. There was, however, a conversation with CNET, and CNET, thank you so much for asking that question, for getting that access, and getting the answer for people like myself, like Ninja Guy in chat, who love the PlayStation VR 2. It's definitely one of the easiest and most accessible VR options on the market. Yes, it will. PSVR 2 will not change how it uses, still just plugs into one of the front USB-C ports, and it just works. And your games will run, and they will run better in the future. Essentially, they're going to be bringing that PSSR upscaling resolution, which is something that's kind of required for some PSVR 2 games. It's not the most pressing of situations because a lot of developers just go with this cell shading sort of approach to VR because it is easier to render in Unreal and in Unity. But yeah, there are going to be betterments through PSSR. I would prefer to see better frame rates. VR is much easier to engage with higher frame rates. There are certain games like No Man's Sky, for example. It runs at a great 60 frames per second on the PSVR, but if I turn too quickly, I am making myself motion sick and almost falling over, as you actually witnessed in a game where you saw my character hit the floor or go through the floor when I actually did fall over. So it would be nice to get more frames out of it, but it's just lack of messaging again. Yeah, they announced the PlayStation 5 Pro. They didn't mention about the disk drive in that presentation. They didn't mention about the 2 TB SSD in that presentation. They didn't mention that you're not getting a DualSense Edge, the Pro controller with this Pro console. They didn't mention anything about PSVR 2. That it's just the same old that we've faced for the last 2 years. Sony giving us next to nothing. They say something and it raises more questions. It needs to change. It's not good enough at the moment.
Well, I completely agree. One thing they were lacking, a solid PlayStation VR 2 IP, and bring it right up front and center. Hey, this is going to increase your experience here. It's really too bad that it was absent from the stage floor, I think.
There was a lot that was absent. As a lot of people will say, it's like, it's all well and good showing off these games running better. It's a great side-by-side comparison. But there was nothing new. It only needed one game to say, this is a new game coming that is taking full advantage of the PS5 Pro, and that would have increased people's hype. It would have increased the conversation around it in a more positive way. As it was, it's like, oh yeah, here's a new bit of hardware to play your old games a little bit better, which most people won't do. Like, most of the gaming populace will play a game once and then either sell it on or forget about it. They're done with it at that point.
Yeah.
So it needed games, it needed a lot more information about what was included with it. To answer Ninja Guy's question in chat, did the PS4 Pro come with a Pro controller? There was no Pro controller for the PS4 generation. You got a Dual Shock 4 that matched your PlayStation 4 Pro. So mine is a beautiful translucent blue one. But there is a Pro controller in the PlayStation 5 generation offered direct from Sony in the PlayStation, the DualSense Edge. So it's just
Yeah, the DualSense Edge should come with the PlayStation
it's a
Pro.
Pro console. It should have the Pro controller with it.
Yeah.
And there should have been a lot more information about what it's capable of doing, what's going to be taking advantage of this.
Well,
The price has annoyed me about the PS5 Pro, and it has tarnished what was otherwise a positive technical showcase. I thought up until that price was announced, this looks good. And we were chatting in the Discord that's linked below with a bunch of people in the Super PlayStation Brothers chat to say, yeah, this looks great. We're loving this. Like, everything sounds basically what we want from a Pro console. And then that price came out and the conversation changed to basically WTF. It ruined everything. It undermined every little bit of positive momentum that the rest of that presentation built up. In the last second on screen, it destroyed it all.
Well, one thing I will say is if you're a user of the physical games, something tells me that the disc drive that you pick up today for your PS5 will be applicable to the PS6, because I have a feeling that the PS6 is going to launch as a digital console with the ability to attach this existing disc drive. Just my theory, but we'll see about that. Now, the other thing I will say is you and I both know that there is a possible games showcase from PlayStation happening this month. Am I correct in saying that?
Oh, here we go again. Yeah, right, let me try that one again, but in English for you.
Take two.
Snap! Just after the PS5 Pro announcement yesterday, there was a news article on PlayStation Lifestyle from a leaker who nobody put any stock in prior to the PS5 Pro announcement. But he released every bit of information about the PS5 Pro correctly. It seems like the guy has got access to the YouTube back end. So he has already seen the state of play that is due in late September. And that state of play is third-party indie titles. There is no first-party content within it. This leak has suddenly got a track record. A very good, very accurate track record. He's leaked one thing and it was a perfect leak. And now he said that the state of play we're getting at the end of September is just third-party indies. There is no first-party content at all. You will not be hearing about PlayStation Studios games in September.
I don't know. I think that what we will see is definitely the PS5 taking advantage of a lot of games like we see here. These are going to be front and center. There's 50 PS5 Pro compatible games, as well as I think they said something like 8,000 PS4 games or 800 were also compatible. 8,500 PS4 games will also get the boost. So they are upgrading
It's
all
more
of
than
the.
that.
It's
It's
more
more
than
than
that.
that for the PS4 games. Again, something not mentioned within the presentation at all.
Yeah.
Basically, you know, Xbox has this game boost feature where it takes old games and improves them, so it upscales their visuals and it improves their frame rate. PlayStation 5 Pro will do that for PS4 games. About bloody time.
Yeah.
That's a
And
positive. Should have been in that showcase. That should have been in that technical presentation. And again, wasn't.
but I think we are still going to see more coming in September. I think they're setting this up for they're pitching a slow pitch and then they're going to hit it out of the park in September. They're going to talk about Wolverine, PS5 Pro Enhanced. They're going to be talking about Spider-Man DLC, PS5 Pro Enhanced, Ghost of Tsushima 2, Death Stranding 2. So the titles are coming, the DLC is coming, Atreus DLC on its way, and it's all going to be coming this September. And I think we're going to see PS5 Pro enhanced all over everything. I think this September we're going to get a little bit of shock and awe because I think they're going to hit hard where it counts because they've gone a little bit quiet, not releasing the games. But I think this is where we're going to come around.
I personally think the only way that happens is if they announce it all at the Tokyo Game Show, which is not beyond the realm of possibility. This is the first year they're at the Tokyo Game Show since 2019. So they could have a full presentation organized for that. They're doing a sit down with Hideo Kojima for Death Stranding 2. They've got like a main stage event. Obviously, for us that don't speak Japanese or don't speak more than Kaizoku ni Ori wa Naru, that's not going to be something we watch live. It'll be one with subtitles or translations later. But unless they go all out at the Tokyo Game Show, with this leak from the guy who leaked the whole of PS5 Pro, we are getting only indie games that state of play in September. Nowhere in indie games and third-party games are you going to see Wolverine or Spider-Man? And both of those are from Insomniac. What the hell are the rest of the PlayStation studios doing? What's Naughty Dog up to? What are Bend Studios doing? We've got so many studios out there. What's Guerrilla's next title? We know it'll be Horizon 3, but are we seeing that on PlayStation 5 or is that going to be a PlayStation 6 title? It's the cadence of releases isn't good enough. And when you're not hearing anything, you may as well sell up and go buy a PC because at least it's a bunch of games over there.
I hear what you're saying. Yeah, we're definitely in a drought of games, first party wise, and it being only rumored to be a third party showcase is not the most promising. But you know me, I hope for the best. Mr. Optimism.
How many times have I proven you wrong? Mwah!
Well, if you're looking to pre-order it before it's too late, like I'm saying, even though we may talk about technically how it's not going to be that much different or where it's offering, but I have a guarantee that it's going to be selling out like gangbusters. So make sure that you check out direct Sony ordering at PlayStation, because I believe that is the way to pre-order it directly from their Sony website. And the Japanese manufacturer makes the most powerful PlayStation design. So if you're interested, you have to head over and make sure you pre-order these. I'm gonna say it, they will probably sell out. It's PS Direct. That was the words I was looking for. That is the one place that you are able to pre-order based on your country.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. They will sell out. That there's enough people who will just, if it's got Sony or PlayStation logos on it, they'll pay whatever it takes. And again, your neck of the woods, that's kind of fine. $100 difference isn't a problem. But Jem's asking in chat, question for the panel, what price were you expecting for the PS5 Pro? I think I wasn't expecting it. I was expecting an astronomical price, an unattainable price. I was kind of hoping for 599, with the base console costing 479 at the moment. A 599 price would put it as that. Yeah, it's a pro console, it's more powerful, but it's not beyond that reachable, attainable target. Whereas the 699 starting price, and I say that as it's a starting price, you then have to buy a bunch of additional accessories to actually make it bloody work. If you've got an existing library, you know, what everything they were marketing it with, it's just unattainable. It's too far out of reach for even the most hardcore, let alone the average gamer. It's just
Well, I'm going to be opening up Rudig's ships, and we're going to find a tax-free category, and I'm just going to be shipping PS5s over your way. And we're going to be calling it medical supplies, something like that.
I was ironically looking into this as a possible business venture for you and I last night, because if we could get them in the country quite a chunk cheaper than PlayStation were offering them, it'd be great. The problem is it's based upon the value of the item, and they will just open everything at customs. They
Yeah.
will open it and check what it is. They don't even need to open it. They stick it through big X-ray machines and MRIs and such, so they can see it before opening it. But it was £106 for them to just look at it. You then had to add 29% VAT atop of it.
Oh
And
my
then there's
gosh.
whatever handling charge that they felt like adding on top of that. So, at a conservative guess, if you were to port one over to us, if you were to send a case of them, each one would cost about 900 quid. So, yeah, it would actually be cheaper to just buy it direct from PlayStation.
Damn. Damn. Well, there goes that business venture.
Yeah,
Um,
unfortunately, yeah.
now I know I bring up the FOMO, but this is the one thing I wanted to bring up from this article is will there be enough PS5 Pros at stock at launch? Well, it's impossible to say right now, but if you recall, the main issue with PS5 when it first launched was that it was constrained initially due to a semiconductor shortage, and that was caused by the pandemic. This situation has now been since resolved, so it's unlikely to reoccur again. So if you're worried about PS5 shortages happening, you now have that background information that should make you feel more reassured that they're going to be in stock.
It will still be short stocked. I work in big tech. I work in a department that relies on semiconductors, and the shortage is still impacting the world. The iPhone launches are delayed because of the semiconductor shortages. The Pixels had to be staggered releases because of semiconductor shortages. So your Pro came out 4 or 5 weeks after the candy bar phones. There's still going to be shortages of PS5 Pro for all 7 people who will buy one.
Well, all 7. Uh I don't know if we should talk about anything else at this point, because we're like 10 minutes from the end of the show. But at the end of this, are you sold on the PS5 Pro? After this
No,
technical presentation, no. Not
no,
for
I
you.
can't be. Not at the price.
Yeah.
It's asking far too much money with far too many caveats and far too many hidden additional costs to be anything other than a blanket no. If it comes down in price in future, or I could pick one up pretty decent condition and in a configuration I want second hand, maybe for a better price, then maybe it would be considered. But at launch, bear in mind, I got the PS5 on launch day. I did that because I create content, and it allowed me to create better content, and allowed me to do PS5 new content and all that sort of stuff. As a content creator, it's been priced out of my range. Bear in mind, I earn money from my content creation and I have a full-time job. There is no way that I should be struggling to afford this console. But they've managed to make it unaffordable. They've managed to completely price it out of the realms of possibility for me. And so it is a huge resounding no on price alone. Nothing else comes into the feature set or the thought process. It's far too expensive. I can't afford it.
Now, if you were faced, now we're living in hypotheticals here because I want to get your analysis on what it is behind after the price. Because if you were faced with my situation where it was $100 to upgrade, what would be your thinking? Is the technology that they're pushing in this box worth the 100 to 150 Canadian, to which I will say is 75 Harry Potter dollars at the max? Is it worth that upgrade?
For 75 quid more, hell yeah. It's a lot more console for 75 quid. Are you kidding me?
Listen, Canada and Japan are like this. They're so tight. Yeah. They're best of friends, Hannah.
I'm actually stunned. I can't find words.
So the
If the price was
technology is
taken out of
worth
the
it? Yeah.
equation.
If you were in my shoes, would the technology in the box make sense to you for the upgrade?
For 150 Canadian more, for £75 more, yeah, there's quite a lot more going on there, and I want the games that I love to have those stable frame rates. I am a player that returns to titles regularly. I like returning to my old games and playing them again and again and again. I get joy out of that. It's why live service a lot of the time means absolutely nothing to me, because every game I've ever played is live service. I still play my PS2, I still play my PS3, still play my N64. I've got a Game Boy Color in the other room that is still in full working order with a battle cable and everything. For that small amount of money more, it's almost a no-brainer. It's like when you could take a Samsung phone and trade it in and get the new one for $90 or something, because they do ridiculous trading deals in the US, and you're getting a 1,500 quid phone for $90 or something. It's a no-brainer. You upgrade and you go for it. But when the difference is pushing £200 to £400, depending on what you require, it's the rest of the console doesn't come into the conversation.
Yeah. Yeah, it's unfortunate we can't have the same conversation. Political economics and all that. But yeah,
I think
I'm
Sony
definitely
just
on the
hates
hype
us.
train.
We're just hated by. I know we're hated by most of the world, but Sony apparently really hate us.
All right, Dorgon. So how do you feel? I've ran out of PS5 Pro topics. Do we tell people about Astrobot free DLC?
We need to have some positivity in this,
All
because
right,
it's very
let's go.
negative from my side so far.
Well, oh, my computer, come on. My PlayStation runs Astrobot better than you run this Astrobot article computer. Let's go.
Oh my days, that's great.